All right, here we go.
Where to Hunt podcast. It's okay.
Hi, I'm Dan Small, host of Outdoor Wisconsin, and I listen to Where to Hunt.
Nah, it's okay.
I'm Kurt Geyer with Working Class Bow Hunter. I listen to Where to Hunt podcast, and it's decent.
It's all right.
Hey, this is Bud Fisher with Catching Deers, and I think the Where to Hunt podcast is all right.
Hey, everybody. We are live on the Where to Hunt podcast. I'm Eric. And I think Greg's here with me. It's like, wait, did I mute you? We got Greg here with us.
I'm here. A little delay.
This is the podcast that connects public land hunting enthusiasts, a.k.a. the okayest podcast in the Midwest. And we're happy to be back for another week of doing this. Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Yep. Neither one of us have gotten sick yet, so life is good.
Yeah, we're staying away from each other. We're totally distanced. How you doing this week so far, bud? You having fun?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to turkey season starting tomorrow. How about yourself?
I'm looking forward to cooking my first brisket on my new Pit Boss pellet grill tomorrow.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You're making me hungry. I didn't eat dinner yet, and brisket sounds mighty good.
Yeah, well, I mean, it might not be that great because I've never done it before, so we'll see how it turns out. I'm not sure how much faith I have in myself. I've been watching a bunch of YouTube videos tonight.
Oh, yeah, I got a pretty good YouTube channel. I could send you links off of that.
All right, send it. Well, before we get into stuff, let's do our sponsor call out. I actually just brewed up some Backwoods Grind coffee. Hear that right there?
Mm.
Oh, it smells so good.
That's been keeping me going from working from home. So
it's really, honestly, it's just so good. And I have 2 bags here for you because they ship them to my house. So once we're done with all this, you're going to probably have like 2 to 4 bags to take home with you. You'll be stocked up real nice. And for those of you that hear us talk about it every single week and you haven't tried it yet, I recommend it. Go to backwoodsgrind.com, enter in code W2H podcast, and you're going to get 10% off. It's pretty good stuff. It's totally worth it. And then, Greg and I both wear gum leaf boots. We each have 2 different pairs of them. We have the Wellies and the Royal Zips. The Wellies are pretty good right now because they're not insulated at all or anything like that. But they are 85% natural rubber, handmade from scratch, and they're really high quality with the Vibram sole, super flexible, very comfortable, and incredibly durable. Would you say that sums it up pretty nicely?
I would say you hit the nail right on the head.
I do aim to please. Now that I've had a lot of coffee today, which could harm me in some way, I'm sure. And then, lastly, Vector Custom Shop. Well, let me back up. For Gumleaf USA, I forgot the discount code. Here's the coffee having its curse on me. Enter in code W2H2020, and you're going to get 10% off, which 10% on their boots is a pretty good deal because they're a bigger ticket item, so it'll go a little bit further. There. How about you do Vector Custom Shop? And I'll tell you the code.
Sure. Vector Custom Shop. Arrows built to your spec. They're thick-walled, heavy carbon arrow that sports the Ethics insert-outsert system. And you can get them weighted up front, 45 to 175 grains. You can get a test pack, which is 2 arrows of a spine of your choice and weighted the way you want it. You can get a half dozen or a dozen arrows, all made up and ready to go. You use the code WHERE2HUNT. That'll give you 10% off. Just go visit them at vectorcustomshop.com.
Do you slayed that thing?
All I got.
Man. Should we tell everybody what you did to one of your arrows today?
Down on my face like last time.
Should we tell them what you did to your arrow today? What'd you do to it?
Well, I tested its durability, and the arrow itself They'll look just fine. However, the outsert, due to the fact that it's aluminum and I'm shooting 70 pounds and it was 10 yards away from a concrete wall, and the iron wheel broadhead that was on the front of it did not survive.
Whoops.
Whatever you do, keep your finger away from the release trigger after you've come to full draw and you're trying to line up. I don't know what I did there. I know what I did there. I just wasn't paying attention. So that arrow is no longer with us.
Oh boy. I'm going to pour a drink for you, buddy.
Moving on.
I'm going to pour some 12-point bourbon whiskey from Drop Tine Spirits.
You had better save me some of that. That's all I got to say.
I'll save you some. It's really good. It's very smooth, I will say that, and it's very potent. It's 92 proof. Dark whiskey, double-barreled. This is the first batch. They're a pretty young company. They're out of Madison, Wisconsin, with some operations out of New York. So they might be a little slow to get it out to you, but they will deliver it to your door, which is pretty cool. So there's that.
Awesome.
Yeah. We do have a guest on the line with us today, Steve Schultz.
Who do we have?
We have Steve Schultz. Steve, I just unmuted you, so you know.
Me?
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect.
We got
Perfect. I'm live.
You are live. How's it feel? Do you feel any different being live? Feel the same?
Yeah, as soon as the button clicked and I went live, I could feel it. So
It's like
it was
lightning.
good. It feels good.
Do you have a drink in your hand tonight? Are you drinking any beer, scotch, bourbon, whiskey, gin?
No, actually no. Canadian dry ginger ale, actually, as we speak. Just finished up some elk tacos, and just got the ginger ale right now.
Nice. Elk tacos. Ooh.
Yep.
Sounds about as good as my brisket right now.
Elk
Craig's
tacos.
he's gonna be really hungry by the end of this episode.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I'm gonna.
So, Steve, tell us a little bit about who you are. I know you're a local. So, for those that don't know, like the Where to Hunt show is out of Wisconsin. I'm in Oconomowoc, and you're a hop, skip, and a jump down the road in Heartland. And I think you had called into the show last year, and we fell in love with you, basically. And we said, let's have you on. And we were going to do this in person, but we can't. So here you are anyways.
Yep, here I am with all the COVID stuff going on. We are all, super close, but all on the phone. Like you said, I'm probably 10, 15 minutes away from you guys. Pretty much hunted Wisconsin all my life since I was able to at the age of 12. And then, started progressing to head out west and start taking some of those adventures on in the last, six years here.
What made you decide to start doing that 6 years ago? What happened? What caused you to kind of embark on that trail?
So I'm actually really good friends with a buddy who owns Whaletails Archery right over in Dousman. And he used to live out there in Montana. So that was kind of the lead in as we kind of got to talking about elk hunting. Me and his brother, and we got Kyle on board with the idea to go out there, and he was able to kind of take us to some of the old stomping grounds and fell in love with it after that first trip, and the rest is history. I've done it every year since.
Wow, every year since. Holy crap. Well, let's back up a little bit. I'm getting ahead of ourselves. So it sounds like you hunt public land. So are you a public land guy? What's that ratio look like from public to private for you?
Yeah, so out west, it's all public. In Wisconsin, I have progressed. I started Northwoods, hunted those deer when I was young, the whole deer camp atmosphere, everything like that. Grew up that way, and then as the deer population dwindled up there, I wasn't able to put in the time up there to, really be as successful as I would like. And that kind of, 4 or 5, 6 hour drive to get up, pushed me to start looking for other things, closer. So now I'm kind of a private land guy now. I'll still dabble on some public land stuff, just cause I think that's fun, that challenge of just figuring them out. And it's a whole different ball game. But Wisconsin, it's become more private, and then out west, it's all public.
That's pretty cool.
Very cool.
And weapon of choice, favorite animal now that you've experienced
Would
some
be
of
a-
the bigger game out west? What do you love?
Yeah. So, weapon-wise, we'll start there. It's going to be the bow. That's pretty much what I do everything with. And then animal-wise, gosh, I mean, elk right now it's just got me. That's my thing right now. Just hearing those bulls, bugle at 20 yards coming in, that exchange, you calling, you getting that bull to commit and do the things you kind of wanted to do and figuring them out, playing the thermals, playing that whole mountain game, has just really got me. So I guess currently I would say elk. But if I could only pick one for the rest of my life, I would probably say whitetails, just because they're going to have that special spot in my heart for forever, just growing up on it and, just managing properties for them and just growing those deer is kind of got a special spot for me.
It's cool. I am
Absolutely.
I've been told that if you go down the path of elk hunting, it really kind of, you can't ever stop.
Yeah, I mean, imagine hunting a deer, right? Like the easiest way I can relate it is turn a deer, like mute a deer and a turkey, just kind of breed those together for us Wisconsin hunters. And, that's kind of what you can expect. You're chasing a whitetail that's double the size, triple the size, that essentially you hunt kind of like a turkey. They're going to respond back to you, the vocalizations, they'll get aggressive, they'll come into those calls. So it's just way more interaction. It's just way, it's just hard to explain until you feel it, until you're able to have those interactions with an animal like that. It's tough. It's pretty awesome.
Have you had the opportunity to chase mule deer yet?
I have not. I've had mule deer tags out elk hunting and stuff like that. But this year will be my first year at going after mule deer. It'll be a rifle mule deer hunt with me and my brother-in-law. So we'll be going out this year chasing mule deer. So that'll be a whole new experience. The spot and stock. It'll be with a rifle, so it'll be a little different for me being the bow guy. But schedules are kind of what pushed that hunt to be kind of a rifle hunt for them, and with September being elk season for me, and then moving right into whitetails in November, we're kind of gonna play that end of October mule deer game.
Very cool. Where are you going? What state? Can you tell us?
It's going to be Wyoming. Is the plan, and then so that is a whole new game. So it's not knowing anything. So going in blind and doing all the research, putting in all the computer time to try to figure out and hope that I'm get on the head and get close.
So in 6 months, come September. Wait, that's not 6 months.
It'll be October.
Here we go with the math. I was just thinking. Oh God.
You're close enough.
I'm so bad, you guys. I'm just thinking, so you said September for elk, October for mule deer, and then November for whitetail. I mean, that's bing, bang, boom. How are you coordinating and planning this stuff? And then with elk hunting, obviously, I think it's best if you're in some sort of physical, shape too. So then you got to be kind of prepping that way also. Tell us a little bit about how you pack all this in to your lifestyle and how you start to prep and plan for these things. Now you got some years under your belt doing it. What have you learned?
Yes. So for me, I'm just super fortunate, one, with my schedule. So my main job is I'm a firefighter paramedic. So my schedule, I work 24 hours on, I'm off for 48 hours, and then I work for 24 hours, and then that schedule repeats itself. So when I use one vacation day, I end up with 5 days off. So I can kind of manage it that way, or trades. I can trade with other people, and they'll work for me, and I'll work for them. Let's say in the middle of the summer, they can have off, and I get off in the fall. And then have an amazing wife who is totally cool with watching the kiddos and dealing with all the chaos while I am gone. But other than that, I kind of just get it on the schedule and commit and figure out what days are going to work. I always know my September hunts are kind of going to be, it's usually an over-the-counter unit. The last 2 years it's been Colorado. and I try to shoot for that like September 12th, 14th through like 20th, 25th, 26th range towards the end of their season. I like to be kind of towards that middle to later half of September, personally.
Sure.
Just let those kind of bulls really make sure they're, full blown kind of in the rut. Little bit more vocalization, might get them herded up a little bit more. But yeah, kind of just like to shoot for that range for elk.
And you said that's Wyoming?
The elk hunt this year will be Colorado. So that's the last couple of years. This will be the last 3 years. I'll be Colorado for elk. The Wyoming would be mule deer, and then Wisconsin for whitetails.
And what is the draw like for Colorado? I know some things have kind of changed even for this season there. What do you have to do to get that?
Yeah. So for what I have done, so I was actually normally just hunted an over-the-counter unit. So I would just take points. So like when I put in for the draw, I would put in for points first. So I'm just kind of saving points to try to eventually draw a higher end unit in Colorado. And then this year for Colorado, my I guess general over-the-counter unit got changed to a draw unit. So I will be looking for a different over-the-counter unit this year. So we got a lot of changes this year, looking for units and trying to figure things out.
And do you use any apps or tools for that? Like, are you using like Basecamp or how are you kind of navigating that?
I personally don't. I guess I'm sure there is like a way better science to figuring out all of your your tags and preference points and when to apply and when to do all of those things and be ahead of the curve. I see it's hunt reminder, like on Instagram, they'll pop up and they'll say, this date is due. And I will literally be like, okay, there, like, that's my reminder. Here I go. I'll go on. And if I'm not hunting that state, I will just put in for my points. If it's a state I want to put in for points. And that's literally when I do it. So it sounds so horrible. To not have a full-blown system for figuring that stuff out, but that's kind of what's worked for me, is just literally wait for that reminder and then I go right on and I do it that day. So for those app-wise, I know there's other like apps out there for like finding units and stuff like that. Is that what you're referring to as well?
Yeah, I guess I'm so green to it that I know nothing. So I'm asking fairly selfish questions. Like when you say you go to buy it after you see Hunt Reminder, and I've seen those guys too, like are you going to the Colorado version of the DNR site? And then
so I'll go, Yep. You'll actually go to like their DNR site. So you'll have essentially usernames and passwords, just like you do for Wisconsin. You have your login and all your stuff. So you'll have a login, a password. You'll have all your information. When you first register, it'll ask you all those questions. You'll have to put in your hunter safety card. You'll have to put in like driver's license, height, eye color. Like you have to do absolutely everything to fill those sections out. Once you're registered, you're able to then log into your account, and then you can go under whatever species when it's open. And then usually you'll have to buy some form of license, like they'll have like a small game or a fishing or some sort of license for the state, which ends up being, I think I bought points in Utah this year. I spent like $80 for the license for the year, just like a general license. And then with that, you can
24 months
any of the following species. So then I applied for elk, for mule deer, for pronghorn, and that's the 3 that I applied for, and then each additional, so it was like $10 for each of those. But then if you time it out for next year, your license will still be good by the time you can apply for your points for the next year. So your tag could be good for 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. I just did something similar like that for Arizona, where I bought the license, and it's good basically into coos deer season, which goes into January. So like you said, it's almost like a 2-year license to an extent. where
Yep.
I bought the license and it gave me, fishing, and I could go small game hunt basically. But that's what gives you the ability to go buy points to apply for unit. You kind of work with it from there, or you can, now that you have the sportsman's license or whatever it is, now you can go buy a deer tag for, an over-the-counter unit.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't sound
Exactly.
It sounds complicated if you've never done it, but it reminds me a little bit like when I went to the Boundary Waters. You had to pick your drop-in point or whatever, and there's only so many available. They only let so many people at a time, and a certain kind of cadence, and you don't really know anything about where you're going, so you really have to study maps and things like that. So once you get past that point and you have your tag and you're good to go, and for this year specifically, since you're kind of going into new territory all over again, how do you do you just kind of work backwards from that and look at, okay, what's nearby, like for lodging for maybe the first night of arrival, or like how do you start to get into the woods and transition from like road trip to all of that?
A lot of it depends on, you'll actually, like when you draw, you'll look to draw, or units, you kind of have to almost sometimes look at it beforehand. So I got some of my like Wyoming highlighted stuff that I did for this year for this mule deer hunt, and I had to look at season dates first because that was the biggest thing for schedule wise, that we were going to be able to go between a certain time period in October. So certain units will have different like time periods that are open. So let's say like hunt area 2 would be November 1st through November 30th, and that would be a general license for antlered deer on private land, or any deer. So antlered deer off private land. So it had to be antlered if it was on public, and then any deer on private. So like for me, I wouldn't be looking at zone 2 to hunt, even though it's a general tag. I wouldn't be looking at that area because for me, the time frame didn't work out. So I would have to be looking at like a zone 7, zone 8, which would give me that time period in October, for example. So there's a little bit more that you would have to look at, and then they break their state up into even bigger categories that some of those hunt areas would fall under. So it would be like just random examples. So this isn't actually how it is, but it's just an example. Like hunt area 14, 15, 17, 19, 21 would be in there, like hunt zone B. So your license would have to be B, and then you would have to be able to, those are the hunt areas you could look at to hunt if you followed along on any of that.
You tracking?
Sure.
So it can get a little bit more complicated in that that scheme of things, as opposed to some states, like for me, the Colorado general tag for elk, you can hunt any general unit in Colorado.
Wow,
that's pretty cut and dried.
Yeah, those are pretty easy. Usually you can do any of that. So some of the states break it down even further, but a lot of them, the information is all on their website. Like if you go to whatever state you're looking at doing, you can get the numbers for success rates for whatever the units you're looking at usually. So like on my notes, I have highlighted the units that I could hunt. I write the success rate in those units, and then I have the dates of the tag. So I have all that stuff marked, and then I would go on to, let's say on Onyx, and I would then start studying those units for access, for what they look like, just what the terrain looks like. Is it open? Is there a lot of private land that borders a lot of the public? How is the access? And then even the DNR will tell you, they'll give you a rating of like each unit, and they'll give you a lot of that stuff just straight away on the DNR websites if you dig deep enough into them.
So you're really kind of doing what a lot of us do in the whitetail world. You're kind of looking at, where the animal's being killed successfully and, what class of them, so to speak, and kind of working towards where you're thinking of the highest probability of probably at least getting eyes on an animal. And then hopefully it's up to you to close the gap there. But, and the units are kind of ranked that way in terms of the availability from what it sounds like, over the counter versus not.
Yeah, definitely your higher draw, so that the units that you need, multiple years of points for are obviously going to be your best success rates at a more mature animal, because that's their goal with those units, and that's the allure to those units, is that's your opportunity. It might take you 10 years to draw that unit, but it's a chance at a buck of a lifetime.
Kind of keeps you in it then too, right? From that perspective, it's like, I'm 10 years into this. If I went back to the same humdrum spot every year, maybe you are doing that for the most part, but then it's like, well, now I get the opportunity to go to this sacred property with, a shot at, like you said, the buck of a lifetime. And it's like, your excitement continues to build the longer you're in the game. I mean, that's...
Oh yeah. And that's
cool.
The build up too, right? Mm-hmm. Like now you're studying a new unit. Now it takes it to the whole year. I mean, you start your studying of maps and of that unit and those locations even earlier, and maybe you go out there for a summer trip to do some scouting and figure out where there's either some bachelor groups of bucks or bulls or whatever it is you're chasing. But yeah, you're going to put a lot more time and effort into that hunt, and it's going to start even sooner than it would if you're just going to your same general unit that you've been hunting for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you like staying in the backcountry then, and backpacking in, camping? I mean, there's a lot of prep that goes into that in terms of like the time of year and the weather in that part of the country. The weather could change, right? It could be warm, cold, snowing, raining. How do you plan for so much of a spectrum of change like that?
Yeah, gear. I mean, really, so I've kind of done both, where we've driven to a trailhead, set up a wall tent, had the whole, the cots and the fire every night, and we would go out from there and we would literally bivvy. So you would just take a sleeping bag and a bivvy cover to keep you waterproof, and we would go out for hours in a sleeping bag, and you'd chase elk that way and go back to the big wall tent after 2 or 3 days and kind of reboot, get in a warm wall tent and have a little bit more of the amenities that way. And there's guys that do it that way all the time, and it can definitely be done that way. I enjoy getting into the backcountry, and this last hunt that I did ended up being 8 days. We took camping on our backs, lightweight tents, and hiked in, I think it was six miles, and then dropped off of the main trail down like 2,000 feet. We lost in elevation and got on a little bench that was in between a lot of elk movement, and had a creek by it, because obviously water's a big deal, especially on a backcountry hunt like that. You're going to need water every day, and there's no way you're packing it in. So you got to be near a water source, and or be hiking up to one every day, or down to one every day. So those are kind of some factors that played into it. But yeah, it's definitely going to be your gear, having the right gear to be able to do that. Because you can get into some bad situations, like you said, with weather. You don't have rain gear. Obviously, you're back there and 6 miles, and you get soaking wet. How are you going to deal with it?
Sure.
Yeah, do you have the right shelter? Do you have the right sleeping bag? Do you have all of the things that are going to help you maintain body heat? Do you have enough food? Do you have the right cooking stove to be able to get that food warm, to get your body temperature up, and just all of those kind of little things that we can get into, I guess, are broader spectrum of kind of what I think is some necessities.
Sure.
There's a lot to balance out there. Pack in weight, what is necessity,
like
what
you're
isn't.
You're going to go and drink out of all that stuff.
Yeah, so it is, I use a squeeze filter. So I actually so in camp we have it's gravity fed. So we literally would go down to the creek and we would fill up 2-gallon bags. So they're literally, you can fold them up to probably a baseball size. And you unfold them, we fill them up with water. We have the dirty water bags, and then we have a clean water bag. And we would just then hang that. And in the morning, we would have a gallon of fresh water. And then after so many uses. You just essentially take that little filter and you force water through it the opposite way to flush it out, and it's good to go. So I have that for the gravity stuff, and then I also have it where they have little squeeze pouches. So while we're out and about, if we need to fill up, you literally can just fill this bag with creek water, and the little filter, you just roll the bag up and squeeze the water through the filter, and it fills up your bottle, and it's good to go.
There's a lot of different ways you can do that stuff. It's interesting the first time you drink out of, a water source like that, and you're like, oh my God, here I go. We used like a little hand pump thing in the Boundary Waters. It took forever. I know some people use like the iodized, whatever that are, iodine pellets.
Iodine pills or iodine tablets that drop in there.
There's a couple of different ways. The gravity bag's smart because then you don't have to work so hard, right? You work hard once, let it do its thing overnight. You wake up to a couple gallons of clean water. That's pretty cool.
Exactly, and that's kind of why I progressed to that. We did it 1 year, and it was the pump filter. So you use it in that oh my God, that took forever. Like you said, so you're sitting
so thirsty,
there and it felt just
and then you're like, man, why am I sweating?
You get to camp, and it's like you want to take care of a couple priorities. Like we set up camp, it's like, hey, let's we're going to go on a hike right away. We got into camp in the morning, so it was like, hey, we're going to go. We haven't gotten any water. Like you hike in with what you got, and it's kind of like, hey, we should think about water. And you start filling up water, and you're like, oh my God, I just want to be chasing elk and doing these things. It's like, so that's where I kind of researched after that trip, and it's like, what can we get that's going to be better? And that gravity system was money. I mean, yeah, we could leave a gallon overnight. We'd have water for the morning. We could leave a gallon while we go hunting. It'll be done. I mean, you always had water. We were very close to a creek. So if we got back to camp and we needed water, one of us would just drop down and fill up. And we would just let the gravity bags go. And if the gravity bag didn't take care of it, we both had our squeeze filters, and we were able to just fill up our own jet boils or our own Nalgene's or whatever we needed via those. So it was a great system.
We did we had to fill our own water like that. We ended up bringing like the little Gatorade, flavor concentrate squeezy things, as well as like,
oh yeah, yep.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy how much different it makes your trip when you're like, you can add flavor to your water, and you're like, oh, and you can.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big piece of advice I have for anybody.
We do the exact same thing for dinner, because it's like, all day you're hiking and you're drinking that water, and it's like you get back and you sit down and you have one of these mountain house meals, and it's just amazing what a little bit of flavor gives you in that water, and just how much that changes it to just taste that something different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. That little tiny thing makes such a big difference. What are you using for you mentioned like maybe a stove. Are you like using a little thing that screws onto a butane for a stove, or is there any sort of brand or anything like that you like? I remember I asked because you mentioned you go in there and you don't have, it's not like you have a lot of these supplies you're packing in with. You're not bringing firewood. You have to go get that stuff to set up camp. And I know if it's wet, I actually use my torch, stove as a torch to get some fire started, and things like that. So, and like, I think I remember we had like a hand chainsaw, but it was kind of like a chain, like you'd, saw back and forth, and it was super compact. Like, are those things that you're bringing out there too? I'm trying to just draw some lines between comparison to the Boundary Waters when you're in a desolate area like that. How are you prepping for, backcountry?
Yeah. Yep. So we did not have the full blown, saw, chain type saw, like you said, that kind of folds out and you use two hands and utilize that. But I do carry essentially their little single shot, like just wet, whatever they'll light and maintain a flame. Even if it's wet wood, anything like that, I'll carry some of those actually like on my person in a safety kit on my pack every time I go out. And then I have an extra little backup kit of those with some food stuff that I leave in my tent if I'm not packing my tent with me all the time. And then that way I would utilize those if we get back and it had rained and we wanted to dry out like that. I put one of those on and light it, and it usually will get get your fire, get that wood dried out enough for you to at least get everything going. And then my tent I'll also leave. So I run a Stone Glacier 2-person tent. So it has 2 vestibules off the side. So I'll actually, if I know we're staying in that area for a while and we're going to have fire, I'll break firewood up underneath one of those vestibules. So I know we'll have dry wood just in case, you get in a bad spot. We know we can at least get something ripping to dry out some wood if need be.
Yeah, lots of things to consider. Greg, your turn.
My turn. You took all the good stuff, man.
We can keep progressing along. I mean, I have plenty of questions. I can do this all night.
Let's see.
I'll hit on some gear points that I was going to touch on. So, these are things that I wouldn't want to go out without personally. So I kind of got my list of things. First off is that I run the Garmin InReach. So got it over at Whale Tails Archery. Kind of was like one of those things, looking at a sat phone or what to do for communication, having, a family back home. And I run the InReach Mini and connects right to my phone. So I'm able to send text and give my location back to my wife whenever I want with no service. So that is super cool. So yeah, whenever I'm out, I'll leave it on and I can get text messages. It'll go to my phone. So it connects through Bluetooth. So I'll get notifications actually to my phone when I don't have service through the InReach, and we can communicate back and forth. So I can stay in touch that way. And then it also has an SOS feature on it. So I'll leave it clipped to a point in my pack where if something bad were to happen, as long as I can get one arm, I put it in a place that both arms could reach it in case something bad happened. You can reach it with both arms, and you can just flip the cover and activate that SOS signal. And it will transmit out that you're in distress, and it'll get somebody there to you to try to locate you.
Oh, crap. That's a big one.
Oh.
So yeah, big one for safety, and then also just having that nice communication home. I mean, it's tough to go out for 8 days and
yeah, you don't want people worrying about you. Where
you're at, how you're doing, what's going on, how's the trip going, is everything okay. So eliminates a little bit of their worry. So that was my tech piece, my bigger one. That's just a real nicety for safety as well as family back home. Next on my list, I had a good pack. I run a Stone Glacier pack, and when we packed out my bull this last year, my brother-in-law was running just a generic pack, didn't have the comforts, and the amount of times he had to stop on the way out with our first load, just with those straps cutting into his shoulders and the amount of gear he could take in, he was limited on a lot of options by not upgrading that pack. And we actually had a better one, a backup pack that I had in my truck, and he switched it out, and we had 0 stops on our way back with that second load, just by switching the pack out for his comfort and where it distributed the weight. And it's an 80-pound pack coming out, and it ended up being that whole pack out was like 16.2 miles.
Holy cow.
Wow.
So you have a pack on for quite a while, and you have a lot of weight on you for quite a while. And to make that trip with stops for rest breaks, but nothing where it was like, I need to readjust my straps, or dude, I need to stop. This is, my back, or I need to stop because, man, my shoulders or my arms are tingling, or, nothing like that. And just the comparison between his first and second trip was like, I had always bought a good pack and pushed having a good pack, but I guess I never had that comparison until this year to see like literally the same pack out, night and day difference in comfort and like honestly enjoyability of that experience.
Sure.
So that's a big one.
Quality
for sure.
pack and some sort of a safety device like that Garmin.
You said you're using
What else you got?
Garmin. Sorry, just to recap on that, it's Garmin, and you said some other piece of technology that pairs with that called InReach?
It is a Garmin InReach is the name of it. So that is what it's an InReach Mini. So that's the whole name. It's by Garmin. It's an InReach, and I do the Mini. So they have an InReach one that's bigger. You can actually text like on the unit. You know, you
Got
can
it.
like go up and scroll up and down. It has
Okay.
different things. The mini is what I personally utilize. It's a smaller unit, but I run everything then off of my cell phone. But I download my maps anyway, so I run on X Maps and download my maps. So I actually utilize my cell phone as my GPS while I'm out there. So I'm actually on my phone, I guess, anything else. So for me, that mini is a little bit nicer because I'm going to have my phone out more so I can see if I got a message from home or if I needed to send something out. I have my phone accessible a little bit more.
What kind of charger are you bringing along for your phone to keep it going? Because you're probably consuming some juice using it that way. Do you have anything you like there?
Yes. I went on, honestly, I have to double check the name. So I have a solar charger that I utilize. I didn't use it on my my trip this year because my battery pack lasted. But it's a Rave Power like solar. It's a 3-port solar pack that I have that essentially, if we need to charge anything when we leave, find a spot that's going to stay the sunniest, and we just put that out and let it charge up our gear. But the it's an Anchor power system that I run. Trying to think of all of the specs on it. I don't know the exact specs on it, but it's an Anchor power system, and I charge that before I leave. And that, for my 8-day trip, that was enough to charge my phone and then my InReach when they needed it.
Nice. So you weren't in any sort of alarming state thinking that you might lose some of that stuff. That's good.
Yeah, so those were big, and then like I said, I had that solar pack just as a backup in case anything did happen. And then as well, I carry like just a little one-shot booster on my pack, so in case something happens with utilizing my cell phone for my GPS and all my stuff, I have that little one-shot charging unit. I don't even know the name of it. It's just, I'm sure it's just similar to like what guys will take in a tree stand with them. If they're on their phone, like all day hunt or something. And I leave that in my pack just in case something happens where my phone dies. I'm using a lot, or, end up sending a lot of messages out, or I end up getting screwed and I'm in the woods overnight without getting back to camp. I have something to just manage that with. So I'll keep one of those in my pack as well.
So you got all the bases covered. Let's maybe move on to what happens when you tag an animal. Like, how are you dealing with hauling all that meat out of there? Are you worried about bears? Are you, what happens if you get it early in your hunt? Are you packing up right away depending on the temperature? Like, how do you start to go down that path?
Yeah. So, for an elk, we'll break it down on the mountain. So it depends where you're at. Where I'm at in Colorado for some of my elk hunts. Our biggest concern would be a mountain lion or just a black bear. We don't have to worry about grizzlies or anything like that. So for us, not a huge concern that way. Usually we'll get the bull broken down, get the meat into meat bags, and we'll just get it up and away from the carcass. So we'll get it broken down right away. So it's quartering out, getting your back straps, tenderloins, all your scrap meat in a bag. So you'll have all those. So like what we did this year, shot my bull, got it all cut up, put it in our packs. We packed it straight up to this little peak that ended up going on a big finger that then eventually led back up to a main trail, and then we took that main trail back to the truck. So right after it was shot, we didn't debone it until the next day, but we just essentially broke it down, left it on bone, carried it up, found a dark little north face that was in some pine, so it stayed real dark, real cool throughout the day, and we left it there overnight. So I kind of elevated it. We didn't have any good trees to hang the meat to get airflow around it to cool it down, so I kind of had a horizontal deadfall, and we stacked some other bigger branches on it, and I just laid that meat out so it could get some good airflow underneath it, and it's away from that carcass. We were probably maybe half mile away from that carcass, and we left the meat and stuff there overnight, came back the next morning while it was still cool. We deboned it then to lose a lot of weight. Deboned it, got it back in our meat bags, and then we proceeded to then pack it out. And then I pre-do my coolers with ice. So I freeze them beforehand to get that chill out of them, and then I'll fill them with ice, and then that way I know I'll have ice regardless for that 8 days, and then go back and get that meat on ice, and then we go back and hunt.
So you're driving out, and then you're getting
That's
your
quite a
coolers,
process.
like you're getting your coolers prepped in ice, so while you're on the trip, when you come back, you still have a cold freezer to put the meat in for the haul back home. But there's a shit ton of work that goes into getting that meat out of that land. Holy cow! And that's one where, you know, my thing that I can't comprehend or wrap my head around is if it's hot outside and you start to get flies and things like that. You know, how fast you have to act so that meat doesn't go bad. And obviously the time of the year and where you're at, the climate will dictate that. I'm sure, you know, it changes a little bit, but that's one where I'm like, how do you deal with that? You know, what does that look like?
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, it's quick, right? Like you're going to get that animal in the shade. So that the thing is, we'll roll it down into the shade and stay in the shade, work in the shade. Yep, get that meat cut up and then get it into a game bag right away. So when it's in that game bag, it prevents those flies from being able to, you know, lay any larvae, any issues with the meat to keep that good. So once it's in those bags and in the shade and air circulating around it to get it cooled down, that's your biggest thing. And then the nights there, for us, I mean, they're cold. They're in the 30s. In our September hunts, usually they're, you know, low 40s, high 30s, is kind of an average night where we are. We were camped at like 10,000 feet. So it gets cold, but yeah, I mean, the days, like when we packed out on our last day, I think it was 78 degrees. So huge fluctuation in temperature.
Then we go back to the gear you're wearing, and now you got to get some wicking layers on because you're gonna be sweating your sack off out there. Like, so that's just so many extremes. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's where like just having the right pieces, so you can just have the right pieces of gear, and you won't need as much of it. So you know, that's where it goes to having good boots. Obviously, I mean, just that one pack out, that's 16 miles with, you know, let's say 80 pounds on your back. And the elevation you have to climb is a couple thousand feet. So having a good boot where you know you're not going to roll an ankle, have an issue, you have solid footwear for that. And then, like you said, going to those base layers, a merino wool, a super thin synthetic merino blend, something like that you can get sweaty. You get to a spot where you want to sit down, that wind is going to dry you off because you don't want to be sweaty.
And Greg, you like the merino wool. I know you talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah, I do like merino wool. Like you said, you get it wet with sweat, or even if you get rained on, it'll retain heat when it needs to, and it'll dry out with a little bit of a breeze. You get a little air movement, and it'll help wick the sweat away from you, and help regulate your body temperature really well. Or a merino blend, I've got a little bit of that too, where it's a little bit lighter, especially for warmer weather. It definitely helps whip away moisture and breathe a lot better. What are you packing in for like an outer shell? I mean, obviously that's kind of a broad question, but you probably pack a fair amount of clothing with, don't you?
So honestly, like a puffy layer. So like, I know I run a lot of Sitka stuff. I know Sitka's got some good puffy layers. Otherwise, I know Stone Glacier has a really nice product just came out with that I'm looking at trying this year. That helps. The down is actually treated, so it's down, but it's got a water resistant or water repellent layer in it. I just watched they just did a Special Forces rewarming drill, and I just watched that on it, and they have all their facts, and it looks pretty cool. But when you get into it, and the fact that it can pull water, you know, out of your other clothes, to that down and keep you warm if you do end up getting wet that way. But that puffy layer ends up becoming like I'm always wearing that. So I'll literally hike in that merino. So I have a lightweight merino quarter zip that I will wear the majority of the day when the sun's up, because you're hiking, right? You're moving, so you're sweating. I'll wear that layer the majority of the day. And then when we stop or sit down or do anything, that puppy layer, they break down so small you can put them in like an outside pack pocket or zippered pouch. You can take that out and you just put that on, sit there, warm up with that puppy layer, and put it back in, and you just keep going, because you get so warm on those hikes.
Yeah.
But then it's just rain gear. I'll have rain gear. Obviously, that's just a safety factor. And then I have a wind-breaking kind of a middleweight jacket. I think it's a Jetstream from Sitka, with a hood, wind-breaking layer. But honestly, other than that, I'll have one backup layer at camp that's kind of like just more of a warmer, thicker, like merino blend, just in case something bad happens or it gets super cold for underneath. But otherwise, it's pretty basic, honestly, clothes-wise.
And how awesome is it to like get there, like, and be in that place that time of year doing what you're doing, and then the next high from there is, connecting with an elk. Like, how high are the highs there? I mean, you got to just be on cloud 9.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it's great. Like, to experience those things coming from the Midwest and, the hunting traditions that we have, and to be able to go out to the mountains and experience something that you've never seen, at least I had never seen until I had gone out hunting. Just the vast terrain, the thousands upon thousands of acres that you can hunt. I mean, anybody that can legally buy a tag there could be doing the exact same thing I'm doing, that just fair chase that nobody can say you didn't earn that. Anybody could have had that opportunity to go do that. And then, yeah, like you said, if you go out there and connect, I think it's a 10% chance on an over-the-counter archery wild hunt, something like that, 10% success rate. So, yeah, to go out there and pick a spot on the map, public land, and try to get it done and have something come together is pretty amazing.
It's freaking cool. You must spend a lot of time at Whale Tails then too, huh? Sorry, Greg. I got mine in first.
That's all right.
You can ask your question. We can go back to mine.
How often do you run? I'll get it out eventually. How often do you run into other hunters?
Sometimes it depends on the year. Like, one year we might run into one group of guys like that you call in or that you run into, and that was it. And then, like this last year, same spot, we ran into like four different guys, or like, a pair of two guys, 4 different like groups, if you want to call it that. So yeah, it can vary on the time that you go, depending on what other areas those guys have hunted, if there was out there, if this was their front, like so many different factors could fall into like why there's guys there. But yeah, we only had one guy truly, I guess, screw us up on a hunt. We had a great just scream fest with a bull early morning. We were working in on him. Every time I called, he'd bugle, brought us right in. Wind started kind of changing, so it was early in the hunt. Instead of getting super aggressive and like going above him and trying to get in, we dropped into this little creek bottom, I guess, or creek running between two of the mountains, and we just kind of worked underneath them, kept our thermals down below them, worked up, got the wind into our face, circled around where they were bedded, the whole thing. We were all jacked up thinking like, this bull's going to be better right there with these cows, and it's going to be awesome. And as we get about halfway through our ascent to get up to where they were bedded, all of a sudden we hear cow call. I'm like, that's a person. And we kind of just stop, hear it again. And then, we see this guy working down kind of from that area there was elk were. And sure enough, we ended up working up to where they were bedded, and there's boot tracks right there in the mud where we had, physically seen the bull and those cows.
Darn.
And he kind of just blew them out there. We ran into him when we were packing out the last day, and he told us, he's like, literally telling us this whole situation. He didn't know we were there. We didn't know we saw him, but he then tells us the story, and he said it's the biggest bull he's seen in his life out there and all this stuff. And he said he messed it up. I'm like, that was us. We were literally, right there. We just missed it. But it's public land.
Yeah, that's the beauty and the curse, I guess. It's like we're all trying to enjoy some of the same experience on, so you can't fault anybody for it or anything. But it's like when it happens, like, damn, shit. I'm going out there again. That's wild.
Yeah, no, like you said, everyone's out there enjoying it, and I mean it's huge country, so you can get away from people. But yeah, just you start talking, and guys can hear you bugling or hear other animals, and they're gonna start kind of moving in.
Yep. So you got a big season ahead of you with this September starting to kick things off, and then October, and then obviously November. I don't know what. I feel like I had a question in there right now, but like, what are you doing right now to prep for that? Like, what are you doing? Now that it's going to be May in a couple days here, what are you doing now to prep?
Yeah. Well, just computer stuff. I'll reach out here shortly to some of the biologists in those states and double check some of the units that I was thinking to see like what the winter kill would be, or see if there's been any, vast changes where they may have, those herd numbers may have changed. Kind of talk through with that biologist, kind of the area I was looking at, things I was thinking, and kind of are really good about kind of guiding you to tell you that, you're kind of on the right track. This is what you're thinking. Or like, hey, like that trailhead is pounded, there's X amount of vehicles there, or whatever. So they can kind of give you a heads up on things to expect.
Yep. That's smart. It's a good use of your time.
But
now.
other than that, I actually just had shoulder surgery in February. So now I am cleared to like shoot my bow again and do those things. So I'm like working back into shooting my bow. It's crazy to shoot my 3D bow, which is like 50 pounds. And like even holding that, I shot like 10 times, and I'm like, oh my God, I can, you're holding the pin, and it's like, it's so weak. Like, why is it moving so much?
Gosh, the things we take for granted.
Working back into that.
You got to recondition all those muscles that you weren't using for so long.
It's crazy like what you lose. It's been a couple months of super restricted lifting and everything like that. But yeah, now that I'm cleared to shoot, I'm like, all right, let's go. Went into the shop and got a new target, and I'm all set up. I'm ready to go. And now it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to do a lot of work to get up to my hunting bow and get back to it, because it's not working out too well. He's a little weak.
Yikes.
Sure.
Yikes.
Question about your ammunition for that type of trip. Are you going with a heavier arrow, a different type of broadhead when you are chasing elk? Or are you using your same whitetail gear that gets it done?
Yeah, so I've been personally using I shoot a little heavier arrow regardless. I have that Access 5 millimeter. Then I just have the Iron Will broadhead with collar on cert collar. I think I'm in like the
That's a nice system.
Something range. So that's what I had used this last year for my elk, and then for my deer, I ended up using the same arrow system. I ended up shooting those with Rage. So I'm kind of figuring out. I'm not 100% set on, I guess, one thing. I'm shooting the same arrow, same weight, but I've had mechanical and I've had the fixed. So.
Sure.
It's pretty cool. It's good to know. Obviously, we're pushing up the Vector guys and their product, and their stuff comes along with the Ethics inserts. And Greg, I know you shoot Iron Will. We don't have any affiliations with, other than we like the guys over at Ethics, and we don't have any affiliations with any broadhead companies or anything like that. So we're pretty agnostic when it comes to that, other than the experience that we've had. but I've not had experience with anything bigger. So it's cool to hear that you're using iron wills.
Yeah, no, I mean, on that elk I shot this year was essentially high, quartering away, high run. Actually recovered the broadhead in the offside shoulder when we were deboning, and he ran 30 yards. So it was super cool. Yeah, we walked up to the arrow, or I guess impact. The arrow was still in him. Took 3 steps around a pine tree to start on the blood trail. And we looked up, and there was the bull laying just on the mountain.
It's cool. It's super cool.
Awesome.
Well, we talked a little bit about just how, incredible it is to be, from here in the Midwest and going on a trip like that. That's so beautiful, and having that access. I know we planted the seed early on. What to you is your most memorable hunt across all of that, whether it's elk or whitetail or whatever, for any reason? I'm curious to see, based on your experience, what you have in your story arsenal. Excited to hear it.
Yeah. So, I mean, gosh, there's quite a few that would be up there. I just think that first bull with the bow, like just all the stuff that led up to it, just, the trips before where you learn and go with a buddy, and you kind of just start to get it. You get a taste. You have no idea what you're doing, but you get into elk on accident, and you start to learn. And like coming home and just having that drive and that addiction to just want to learn more, and like practice your calling and watch everything you can on the YouTube to just teach yourself, like, where are those elk? Like, why are they doing what they did? And like that first bull elk, and like what made that first bull elk story. For me, that makes that hunt the most memorable is, you hunt for 4 or 5 days and you're grinding, you're getting into animals, but it's just not happening. And then to use that knowledge that you built from, a couple of years ahead of time and doing all that research puts you in that spot, and you're calling with this animal, and me and this bull were calling back and forth and pulled him up out of this real nasty steep draw, and to be up on the, side hill of him at 40 yards, and he steps out bugling in your face. Like, everything that was built up to that one arrow that, then is perfectly placed, is just like, for that first time, just to know that you did it. Like, you went out there, had no experience, never hunted out west, just grinded, learned what you could to have those interactions with those animals, stay out there under the stars in a little tent for however many days to get it done. Was like, that to me is probably one of my most memorable hunts, just mostly the build up to it.
The anticipation makes it all worthwhile. It's almost like wedding planning, dude. Like, you spend a year and a half, 2 years planning a day, and then it all comes together, and you can't believe it. I can't imagine how fast it went by after the shot was done. Even the hard parts.
It feels like you black out. I mean, I looked up, my brother-in-law was with me on that bull, and you look up and over your shoulder, and he's got the binos up, and, the fist pumping, and he's coming running down the side of the mountain, and, you're hugging, and like, did that just happen? Like, you just grinded for 4 days, 5 days, and had so many close calls, and, now your mind starts to go like, oh, we only have so many days left. Like, hopefully they really start bugling, or hopefully we get into them. And yeah, you've, had those trials and tribulations from the years past where it's, miss a bull here, hit a tree. And then it's like, blew this stalk because I called it the wrong time. And all of those things and all of those failures just led to that one moment and that success, and knowing that you can do it was just huge.
That's great. That's a good
That's
cap.
awesome.
It's a good cap to the episode. It's a pretty damn good story, man, after hearing everything you had to say about all this stuff. And then we could spend so much time on each individual component of the prepping. Like, we could go into all the, online resources and how you plan these things out, like Hunt Reminder and the Garmin. And we covered them loosely. I think, what we're getting into here at Where to Hunt is these first episodes we do with folks are really intro. And then, at some point we like to bring you back on and dive deeper into some things now that we kind of know you a little better. And hopefully we'll actually have you in studio, and we'd love to dig deeper with you. Maybe as you get closer or post hunt, see how some things went for you. We'd love to have you back.
Yeah, I can bring a pack in, get that gear that I was telling you guys about, and, you know, kind of showcase.
That'd be cool.
I bring it, you know, I can bring the pack in, bring the boots, bring the things that I kind of highlight as like, you know, you can go out, you can do these hunts. If you're going to do, you know, you might not need certain things, but these are the things that I think that are, you know, one, going to make you more successful or just safer, right? If you can buy a layer that's going to do multiple things and be a layer that will, you know, keep you a little bit safer or have a better chance of having an enjoyable hunt, we can break all of those down. It would be fun.
And how realistic?
Sure, and I think the big...
Thanks. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
Damn it. What do you think? Everybody's, you know, thinking, man, what's this stuff cost? So maybe that's something we can kind of talk about too. You know, where can you maybe try to save some money and where you shouldn't save money? I think that'd be another good thing to avenue to go down.
Yeah, no, we can definitely break that stuff down and where to get it. I mean, like, there's a lot of places you have to go online. So, you know, to be able to try something on, I mean, when you're spending $400 on a pack, you want to try the thing on and you want to know that it fits, or same thing with boots, right? Like, crispy Penetrax, stuff like that. You want to make sure you try this boot on and you know that it's going to fit. So, you want to have a place that you can go, and check that stuff out. I mean, these are huge purchases for guys, like you said, to want to go on a trip and take that jump. And now you're ordering stuff online. Like, you know, you want to have a place. And for me, I go to Whale Tails. They have all of that stuff. All my out west stuff came from there. But we could easily break down that. You guys let me know where you want to take it on that episode.
We're probably going to take it to Whale Tails, and we'll just go through their gear there. And we could run a broadcast from their shop.
Yeah, we could 100%. It's all on the shelf. That's my sleep system is there. Everything's there. We could have Kyle break some of that stuff down. I know he's tested it out in the middle of nowhere. I've tested it out in the middle of nowhere. We can give you guys that firsthand experience on like why we chose certain things. And I know, he's not going to put it on the shelf if it's not anything that's, you know, gonna actually produce out there. You know, he's that minimalist guy that
he's gonna be able to stand
if it doesn't
behind
have
it
a
too.
purpose,
Yep.
He's not gonna run it. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's cool.
Yep.
No, that makes sense. I think that'd be a great idea.
Kyle does a phenomenal job. That whole shop is great. I love going in there. I could spend a lot of time in there looking at stuff that I don't need at the moment and just have fun with it.
And talking to the people like that too is like, for people that are interested in just going out west, just broaden your horizons, talk to so many people. You'd be so surprised if you said, hey, I'm going to Colorado on over-the-counter hunt. There was probably a dude somewhere in there shooting lead doing something that's been like, I did Colorado 2 years ago. I hunted that same unit. Where are you going? Like, let me give you waypoints. Like, things like that are just huge. And to give you that, or if you know somebody that lives out west, reach out. If you're looking to do a hunt like this, reach out to those people, because you would be so surprised at the information that you could get, and the I guess hours of research that you might be able to just eliminate. Or talking to somebody about gear, make those calls. If it's a friend you haven't talked to in a while that you know that goes out west, make that call. They could literally save you, you know, hours upon hours and hundreds of dollars on gear. So
do you think it's reasonable to think that I could hypothetically, and maybe not hypothetically, it's not too early or too late necessarily to plan something for 2021? If I'm thinking September, elk, Colorado, I don't think I would be.
Not at all.
Right. That's totally doable.
Yeah, no, start. You can start picking up those, you know, some of those gear pieces. It's not going to then run you, you know, more depending on the hunt you want to do. You know, if you want to go from a trailhead, those are things you kind of got to figure out. You know, if you want to go in the backcountry and pack your camp in and set up and live under the stars in a little spike camp for however many days, or you want to have a big camp, but it allows you to spread out, getting that gear, you know, at least some of the essential stuff. I'm not saying you need to go out and you're going to have this whole new system and do all this stuff, but there are definitely elements that you're going to want to pick up. And if you can get that figured out and know that you're going to do it and commit to it, and, maybe get that pair of boots and wear it through your whitetail season, or wear it on some of your hikes this year or whatever, just get into some of that stuff. Your pack, go on some pack hikes for this summer or do whatever, but learn that pack, learn what you can put in it, learn what it can do for you.
Pretty good advice. Dude, thank you for coming on the show, and sorry you couldn't be here in studio to share, some bourbon or scotch or whatever we have here, Busch Light. We appreciate it. And no calls that came in. I assume it's nice
anytime.
out. People are probably either putting their kids to bed or out, at a bonfire or cooking some food or hanging out. It's just springtime. It's finally nice outside. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us.
Yes, guys, anytime. And like I said, when this all clears up, let's talk a little bit deeper, and we'll try some. Was it Drop Time? Was it whiskey or?
Yeah, the Drop Time bourbon, the 12-point bourbon.
The Drop Time bourbon. That's bourbon. So we'll have to break that out, and I'll bring some gear over, or we'll go to the shop and we'll take some of that over to Whale Tails, and we can do a pretty killer little breakdown.
Hell yeah, cool,
Sweet.
All right, I'm going to end the live session. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. As you all know, we'll have this live later on tonight in podcast land, fully produced. So everybody have a great night.
Have a good night.